Alright, time for another DraftPhysics.com, debatephysics.com also, but the debate is really quite ugly. Oh, very personal and unpleasant, whatever debate there is. The debate is just basically insults being hurled. So anyway, at least on their part. I mean, frankly, I do make an awful lot of videos on the point, and they just really don't pay much attention. So, currently, the dispar thing, he keeps doing the 1.4 thing. Okay, square root of 2 is some sort of magic, blah, 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 blah. So we have these experiments with little cars. Okay, so we have a 1-mass car and a 2-mass car. I guess we'll just make him bigger. No, 1.5, that doesn't matter how you look at it. Shot by the same rubber band, okay, force. And this one goes with a velocity, we'll just say 1 velocity, and this has 1.4 the velocity. That's the results he's getting. So a half as massive car is not going twice as fast. Now my experience in life tells me that that's just fundamentally wrong. I mean, just as a kid with a cork gun, the idea that the lighter you put this something in front of that gun, the faster it goes. It doesn't go 1.4. Also, it's back to like the bowling ball analogy. You know, you throw an 8-pound bowling ball twice as fast as a 16-pound ball. You know, who's kidding who? You know, there's no 1.4 thing. You know, and certainly a half as light ball thrown only 0.4 faster isn't going to knock down the same number of pins. That seems quite ridiculous. Anyway, so but how to test it? So the first thing I'd say is well, a good test would be is, you know, shoot your cars and then, you know, test them with the same rubber band, you know, in the sense to see if they create the same amount of force in terms of being able to restore the original condition, you know, or something close to it. But these experiments aren't that easy to set up. There's a lot of losses involved, blah, 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 blah. So it's a little tricky. So this was the problem. This is why Joule is named for energy, is because, you know, he spent decades working on the very problem of attempting to collect something's real energy. Okay, and found it's not that simple. You know, every device leaks, so to speak. Can lie to you. So what I thought of is a simpler mechanism. You know, just have your rubber band and exactly the same size weight attached to it, same size object but different weight. So have something you can fill to make heavier, or, you know, like a hollow plastic or something, some way to attach it where it's identical, and you know, and then just make oscillators out of them. That is, just stretch the rubber band in one direction and it will bounce back and forth and back and forth. And one would say that there would be a pretty good test to see what the actual velocity is. Will this oscillate at twice the speed, the half mass? Will it go twice the velocity? Okay, and therefore accomplish the task of going from this much stretch to this much stretch on the other side, presumably, you know, with minimal losses, hopefully. And then back again, and back again, and back again, and back again. So it should be oscillating the same distance, but it should do it at twice the velocity, not 1.4 the velocity. So that seems like a pretty good test. Just thinking about it, it seems like it's not that difficult to attach a rubber band and a rubber band. Again, you have to use, it'd be just ideal as if you could do the experiment and leave everything exactly the same and then make this object twice as heavy through some process, you know, without screwing up the stretch of the rubber bands. So that's the only, you know, and have a quick release here, you know, and something like that. Anyway, so that's what I was thinking of. And then that just relates to the coupled oscillator, which I've talked about before. And again, it's just a matter of figuring out a way, a perfect way, a great way. And now I guess frame rates and better video quality would really be the solution, because the coupled oscillator really does give you a really good test of the idea. You know, 2 mass and a 1 mass, and you just have any kind of device coupling them. That is, where as you initiate motion in one of them, it slowly but surely tugs on the other one, and it gives it the energy. So this one will come to a stop, and then this one will move, then this one will stop, and just this one will move. And it'll kind of tell you, okay, this one's going to have twice the velocity, my prediction, of this one. And that's what you'll find out, is that there is this perfect 2-to-1 relationship, and that there is no sign of kinetic energy. There's just momentum. You'll have the same momentum on this side that you'll end up on this side, but you have to conserve momentum. And kinetic energy, as Professor Lewin says, nature can deal with one way or another. Doesn't have to it's not as strictly as important as conserving momentum. Now, I wonder if that experiment will convince, or at least give some pause to the confidence the opposition has that their theory is just fine. Okay, but anyway, so that's probably one that's simple enough. And it's just, again, about measuring these velocities, measuring the I mean, it'd be nice if you could just go strictly by distance, but distance doesn't work exactly perfectly unless you can make the pendulum very long. But anyway, so you do have to have some way to frame rates or some other way to do velocity. And height is really what you're talking about, height against gravity. So, yeah, so this is thoughts regarding the experiments and how I would do them a little different. Now, it's unfortunate both the Gosling guy and Despard have given up on doing the lever experiment, which, you know, the catapult one, yeah, it does have a flaw, but it's not a critical flaw. And just understanding that you just have to do some compensating. If you have a heavy lever, then you just have to compensate and recognize that it's not going to be a 2-to-1 relationship, but you have to make it more like a 3-to-1 relationship in terms of distance, because the catapult has to move the same speed for both objects, and the only way you can make it move the same speed is to put the lighter mass further out on the lever, because this will move much faster for the 1 mass than at this location for the 2 mass. So if you put the half mass further out, you can fix it. But no one wants to do that experiment, so I guess I'll have to do that one. And then, yes, we still have the classic one where you crash something in here. Okay, a 2 mass with a 1 velocity, presumably, and at 2 distances out, you launch the 1 mass at presumably 2. And again, the limitation is you do have to recognize that you're using some of the energy to move the lever. So you do have to move this out further to compensate for the fact that the force coming in is being degraded by the fact that it has to move the mass of the lever. So the force here won't be the same as the force here, because the lever has consumed some of it. So you have to give this the benefit of being helped to, yeah, you actually have to move it the other way. You have to move it this way in, and recognize that you'll get a velocity that will be less than 2-to-1, but it will be higher than, how to put this, I mean, it will be the velocity you would expect, the amount of force being consumed by the lever. Okay, so you'll have a 100 coming in. You'll have to accept that you're going to lose 10 to 15 to the lever, and now you're going to get 85, to 90 out of the lever. But you do have to move it in to make it a little lighter, because you have less energy to push it with. Yeah. Okay. But you're not going to get twice the velocity. You're going to get something less because the lever is going to consume some of the energy. That's why, yeah, this lighter lever stuff is a good idea. All right, so yeah, that's probably enough of that. Maybe I'll read some Piro comments. You know, I mean, these people are just such weasels. You know, they can't. You know, Piro has made thousands of videos, and all of a sudden he's disabled and he can't speak for himself. He has to have Ian Gosling draw silly pictures for him. But I mean, these arguments are so basic, and you know, you can only. I mean, it's incredulous. You know, it's beyond credible that Piro doesn't understand some of this stuff, because you're just saying this guy worked for the. Well, he did work for the government, so that's always a bad sign. You know, goof off and loafer. But on, you know, telescope crap, you know. So it's like he knows something about gravity and astrological bodies and things. So there's no way he doesn't understand the simple principle that if you fly by a gravitational body at a higher velocity, that you will incur less impact due to the gravity. The gravity will have less effect on you, okay, because there was frankly just less of it. Less of it could affect you because you weren't in it long enough. He doesn't understand that argument. I mean, come on. Nobody could believe he's that stupid. I mean, I'm not cynical enough to think he's that stupid. So what is he? A pathetic liar? I mean, what else is there? There's just no other options here. You can only get insulting, because it's an insult to my intelligence for me to believe he doesn't understand. I mean, I'll draw it one more time, but for somebody not to understand this argument, it's just ridiculous. I mean, you have to be able to understand the argument. Now, if you want to reject it for some reason, then reject it for some kind of articulated reason, but just don't lie. I mean, look, I can make a sun that big, or I can make a sun this big. It doesn't matter, right? And we're just saying, look, you're in the space, and you're going to fly by something that has gravity, right? You're going to go from a point A, and you're going to fly to a point B. That's your trajectory. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get to here, McDonald's, okay? You're trying to get to the McDonald's. And the idea is that this thing, whether it's this big or it's this big, doesn't matter. It can be pinpoint. Part of, you know, physics, he knows this. He knows that these things all come down to point particle kind of analysis. That you can understand the sun as just being a tiny little electron in the middle of the sun with a very powerful, okay, amount of gravity. Or you can understand as this big object. Same exact difference, okay? It doesn't make any difference to the impact it has on a traveler by it, whether it's a little tiny thing made out of lead or a big giant thing made out of hydrogen. It just doesn't matter. So you are flying by it. This is it. It's a finite little thing. It's not an infinite plane. Okay, that's a ridiculous concept. All right. And the simple argument is your plan is to get to McDonald's, not to get to jail. Jail is over here. Okay, so you don't want to go to jail. All right. You don't want to go near, it's like a police convention. They're having a picnic over here. And you just don't like cops, so you don't want anything to do with that. And so the fact is, though, the faster you go, you know, the more velocity you have will just make all of these different lines will happen. You know, and there's one line that's sort of a half orbit, maybe. But you can't get into a real orbit unless you change your speed somewhere. So if you start with a constant velocity, you can't get into an orbit. But you'll either crash into the sun, or you'll be bent a certain amount. And ideally, like if you go fast enough, all right, don't get bent at all. But in this case, it's probably impossible. So even if you went the speed of light, you'd still get hit by some force, a tiny amount, but you'd be hit by some. And so you'd have a little bit of tiny motion over here. And so instead of hitting the front door of McDonald's, you would hit the sidewalk on the side of the McDonald's, you know. But you'd be pretty damn close. But the faster you go, the less force has time to affect you. And it's just about the time. This is a going slow. You're in this a lot of times. So if you could understand the force of gravity just being a bell that went off, bell, bing, 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 little pieces of gravity, right? The slower you're going, the more bings you're going to hear. Bing, 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 bing every second. The faster you go, the less bells you hear. Ding, 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 because you're not in it long enough to hear the next bell kind of idea. So to tell me you don't understand this argument, or that you reject it in some way, like there's some reason you have to say that doesn't happen, when this is exactly how it works, exactly how it happens. I mean, there's no way to rationally dispute this, that this doesn't happen, that it won't be a guarantee, that it's just going to be about how much time you spend traveling this distance. The distance will just matter how fast you go across the distance. It's just going to decide. Nothing else is going to decide, just your velocity. How much time are you spending in this field of energy? How much light is hitting you will decide how much suntan you get, if I use that analogy. So you got to say, how dishonest are these people? They don't know this is the argument. This is a demonstration of the argument's coherency and how it fits reality. I don't think a NASA engineer would draw it any different than I just drew it. I really don't. So what's your argument against it? Make an argument against this argument. Okay, what is it? It's just such bullshit. So, and as I pointed out, though, this is also true if you're going with the gravity. So if you're actually moving with the gravity, the same truth is true. So you could go 50 miles an hour into the gravity, or you could go 500 miles an hour into the gravity. And the fact is, if I set up a certain distance, 1 mile from the surface of the Earth, so you're both 1 mile from the surface of the Earth, one of you goes 50 miles an hour as a starting velocity, you will be in the gravity, say 10 seconds. Just made that up, but it doesn't matter. And if you go 500 miles an hour for the same distance, you'll be in it 1 second. Now that's true. Okay, if this is 10 seconds, this will be 1 second, 500 miles an hour. And the fact is that you'll hit the ground going 509 here, 0.8, and you'll be going, 50 plus, 10 tens is 150. So you'll hit here at 150. So this will gain 100 from the gravity. Same amount of gravity, same distance, traveling the same distance. This one's going to gain 100, and this one's only going to gain 10. There's no argument against that. There's no rational argument against it. It's a fact. That's the way it works. The faster you go, the less gravity you encounter. And in every single circumstance where anything is moving in any field of force, what will decide how much they're moved is how much time are they in the force differential. That's all that's going to matter. You find out how much time, you have all the answers you need. Because time is the elemental function that allows the force to affect you. Without an amount of time for the force to affect you, it can't affect you. It has to have time to affect you. Alright, so with that context, we'll read some of the sloppy, stupid, moronic, slanderous, nonsense comments by the pathetic coward, Piro. The fact that he, like I said, he's made thousands of videos. If he has some opinion to articulate, he should be able to do it on his own without having a moron like Gosling being his mouthpiece. Pathetically silly. Alright, so these are comments on this stupid video Gosling made called Rolling Time Experiment, again, where he drew what I drew and then ignored it entirely. Okay, so he just ignored the whole idea that you're talking about a distance and then you're talking about an amount of time traveling a distance, and just said that all distances are the same and all time is the same. That, which means there's nobody can go a velocity, apparently. Something to that effect. I mean, it was just so moronic. Alright, so Piro writes this crap. So instead of making a physics video where he draws it and explains how anything I said in my video is incorrect, he does this nonsense. One thing I've long wondered is, why does Gary give the impression he can be reasoned with? So even that is an accusation, that I've spent any time on the internet giving impressions. You just wonder. I mean, how dishonest will he be? I mean, this is an asshole that was in my fucking house. Okay? You know, that was important to him, for him to meet the inmendum. Alright? It was important enough. And he'd say something like this. What the fuck? I mean, it's because he'll catch on to things. So again, this is more lies about this catching on to things. You know, nobody caught on to any of this stuff until I started making these videos. And nobody but me is the one who pointed them out. I had to point out the fact that there's angular momentum in Brozo's experiment, the billiard ball one. I did it. I was the one who pointed that out. Not somebody else. Okay, I'm the one who had to figure out, oh, well, catapults are, yeah, they also fail, you know. Yes, you escape the liabilities of, you know, having a horizontal catapult. You escape the liabilities of gravity, but you now have the problem, okay, of the moving lever to account for. Because it's not a balance anymore. Anyway, he'll advance his argument. He remembers things, but he also somehow evades things. So what have I evaded? This is the part that's, you know, another one of these just fake, insanely fake and stupid accusations. You say, why would an honest person say something that's stupid? I'm the one who hasn't evaded anything. I read these jackass comments. I watch these idiotic videos. What the fuck are you talking about? Show me your links. Show me any fucking evidence you have on your side. Now this is the guy, right? When we were talking about wave analysis, okay, who showed a video where they deliberately put noise into the waves and then said, look, noise in, noise out. Oh yeah, duh. You know, interference in, interference out. Of course. And he used that as an argument that, you know, if I throw a rock into a puddle, there's wave interference, when obviously there isn't. Yeah, what a liar. Oh, just amazing bullshit. That are triangulated, I don't know, between these steps. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I think it has to do with the fact that you cannot make Gary accept a series of steps in an argument. So again, what are the series of steps here? I make these 5-minute videos going through these individual points, and all of you cowards evade them. You don't have any response to the actual arguments. These actual drawings will not be duplicated, and somebody will not explain how the 500-mile-an-hour thing that goes through the gravity really fast doesn't in fact go 509 miles an hour. It only gains 9 miles an hour in terms of energy. And that the 50-mile-an-hour thing in the gravity 10 times as long does in fact gain 140 more miles per hour. No one's going to show how that's incorrect or wrong. That the two things gained completely different amounts of energy traveling exactly the same distance. And the only reason why they did do that is because of the time they spent in the gravitational field. Oh, he's just so dishonest. Alright, it's entirely one step at a time. I think that's what's happened with the idea that objects weigh less when they have horizontal velocity. So is this really a subject that Piro doesn't understand? I mean, I have my scale somewhere, but, you know, come on. Do I have to make this video every day for a year or something? I mean, you have a road, okay, some sort of surface, and you put a scale in it, and then you roll things. Now, you roll it really slowly, the thing will roll across the scale, it will read its mass because it has enough time to. But there's a point where you're going to roll it fast enough where it's not going to be on the surface long enough to read its weight. And the faster you go, the less weight the scale is going to read. The less this distance will receive force from the weight of the object, the mass, the gravitational weight. And the whole point is that, right, the whole time it's traveling through here, it's traveling through the stream of gravity. And it's traveling through it so fast that very little water hits it, so it pushes very little into the scale. Now, I shouldn't have to make that video over and over again, should I? Can anybody rational in this conversation say, I really shouldn't have to say that over and over again? I mean, there shouldn't be anybody listening who says, no, that doesn't happen. Things always weigh the same amount no matter how fast they go across the scale. Come on. Let's see. You can make him see the connection to the force of gravity. So again, nobody else made me see that connection. I'm the one who talked about it. So again, what a liar, right? Show me anyone, any video, any paper written, anything anywhere that even discusses the simple truth. Okay, I just can't believe how dishonest these fuckers are. Okay, you know, about what the essence of your weight is. Okay, and your weight is really you traveling in gravity 1 mile an hour into the earth, because you can directly duplicate. You can have your mass, okay, be reflected as your weight in the horizontal mode, okay, without gravity at all. No gravity involved. So I just put a scale sideways. What's the scale doing? It reads weights. So all I have to do is put a pressure on the scale. So pressure is weight. There's no other thing. And the fact is I can take any mass. So mass question mark. Okay, any mass. And if I move it 1 mile an hour, 1 mile per hour into the scale, it will have an impulse. That is, it will hit the scale and move the spring. Okay, your weight. So if this weighs, okay, if it has an atomic weight of 100 pounds, all right, that's what the scale will read at 1 mile an hour. 1 mile an hour collision with the scale, and it will read 100 pounds. And it doesn't matter what it is, 5 pounds, 5 pounds, 2 ounces, 2 ounces. That's the equivalent of your gravitational weight. Gravity does in fact constantly push you, and there's a differential in the amount the ground pushes back, and the differential is 1 mile per hour of velocity. Now, you don't move 1 mile an hour because the earth keeps putting you back where you start. Okay, you go into the earth pushes you back up. You go back into the earth pushes you back up. That's how it works. Now, do I have to make that argument over and over again? I mean, is it seriously? I have to make this argument over and over again to people that are supposed to, you know, they can drive cars and shit? I mean, you're allowed to drive a car and you don't understand that the earth, the gravity is pushing you into the earth and the earth is pushing back, and that the net voyage is 0. You don't go anywhere, but you're doing plenty of moving. And you're doing it at 1 mile an hour. This is basically the argument. It's basically the science. Now, has anybody talked about that? Anybody mentioned it? Anybody anywhere? No, I brought it up. I did. Not you. Not any of these buffoons. None of these chimpanzees came anywhere close. Yeah, you're just such a dishonest sack of shit. Yeah. I'll be back. Alright, so we're back. So anyway, this is just such, you know, it's just so dishonest. I mean, I can't stand that he gets away with being such a liar. Alright, you can't make him see the connection to force. Let me put this back on, not that you need to read along. To the force of gravity. So in spite of him admitting, so this part's the disgusting part. I've been playing videos by Julius Sumner, Professor Lewin, the guy from Yale, all kinds of experiments. I've played the videos, showed the experiments. It's just so dishonest to say I'm admitting something that I've shown previously in videos and argued extensively in those videos. The whole thing with Brozo and the stupid lever launcher thing. I mean, the whole point is they didn't understand that there's no choice but for the objects to fall at the same rate. They thought they could measure how far it goes and that would decide how much energy it had. Okay, which was really stupid. And so all they were really arguing is that you can't launch an object at twice the speed. They weren't doing the experiment I suggested, which was like roll it down a ramp, do something to guarantee you have twice the speed. If it leaves at twice the speed off the cliff, it's only going twice as far. Okay, they couldn't understand that argument. Those are the facts, and this liar is writing this crap, pretending that they're not the ones that had this wrong. This is a guy, this fucking moron, just made a video where he said, you know, the object rolling 4 times the distance, it takes 4 seconds, you know, 4 times the time. He didn't even catch on to that argument. That's a 2-year-old argument, you know, the rolling distance argument. He still didn't even have that one right. And here he is talking this shit about my comprehension? Amazing goddamn scum. What a fucking piece of crap. Human garbage. So in spite of him admitting, just such bullshit, I was the one who demonstrated it. I showed it. And I hooked Brozo with the very fact that that happens. That was exactly the point of my argument. 2 years ago, I was talking about the fact that, well, if we launch these objects in space, we're not going to see 4 times the distance, are we? No, we're not. Twice the velocity is just going to be twice the distance. God, you people are so dishonest. All right, anyway. So in spite of it being the 2 objects hit the ground at the same time, showing the force moving them is the same. Yes, because they're in the gravity the same amount of time. Exactly. They hit in the same time, meaning they're in the gravity the same time. They're in free fall the same exact amount of time. Where did I ever argue otherwise? Oh, that's right, never. I never suggested that you could be in the gravity the same time and have a different amount of energy. That's what you people are arguing. Oh, it's just so amazing he's so dishonest. All right. Regardless of horizontal motion, he will admit only to 1 step at a time. So again, what is this admitting? I don't have to admit. Again, do I have to really go back and show you the video where Julius Sumner does the experiment? I played the video. I mean, how fucking dishonest are you? Oh, you're very dishonest. All right, he doesn't have to relate them. I mean, it's just so fucking dishonest. I just can't get over it. I just never realized that people could be this scummy. I mean, this deplorable, this grotesquely dishonest. You know, people pretending to have some sort of integrity or give a shit about anybody or anything. I mean, this is an evil piece of scum. You shouldn't be allowed anywhere near, you know, impressionables. He can't keep them separate in his mind like a religious paradox. So what is this bullshit about? What exactly have you debunked of anything I have drawn on this board? That's right, nothing. The mystery, the contradiction just still means God is real. So I don't even know what that could possibly mean. They're the God botherers. So let's understand, you know, when Leibniz had, it was towards the end of his life, and you know, when the Newton thing with mv squared was argued, okay, in letters. And so a guy called Clark argued with Leibniz over a 2-year period in letters. And guess what? They spent 90% of the argument talking about fucking God, okay? And 10% talking about the nature of, it's the same lying, right? Leibniz was basically lying about Newton's position, saying that Newton thought the vacuum didn't move. You know, like somehow the vacuum was an object. When, no, he was just saying that there's the space itself doesn't move. Empty space doesn't move by itself. It doesn't have any motion. It doesn't have any substance. But it's always in the same place. There's a place called here, and there's a place called here in space, in 3-dimensional space. And that's Newton's argument, that everything moves relative to that absolute position, space. And he has a whole like, bucket experiment, the whole thing to prove that. But anyway, it's just, again, the perversion of the language. You know, to sit there and pretend that Newton said something he didn't say. You know, so they have to waste a whole bunch of time saying, well, that's a mischaracterization of Newton's statement. Okay, all he's saying is that it's not relative. That there could be absolutely something in the universe that it doesn't have any motion. It's standing still. And so you just find one of those objects, and then you can watch everything else move relative to it. Anyway, he doesn't have to relate them. I don't know what that means. He can keep them separate in his mind like a religious paradox. What the fuck is this? More of this nonsense. Okay, anyway. And he can show you one unconnected step at a time. So, just gibberish. So what other procedure is there? Is to talk about the facts, the evidence that exists, the experiments that exist, and then you have to explain them. That's the whole object of science. And where have I deviated from that obligation? Where have I not shown the experiment and shown an analysis and done my explanation? Where have I failed to do that? Anyway, you're the one who has failed to do any of that. You just say things like, well, Newton said F equals ma, when he didn't say that. All right. Gary thinks it's fine that facts are isolated things. So where's the example of that? I mean, exactly what is an isolated fact? I mean, why would you even articulate a fact if it was isolated? Then it couldn't mean anything. The only way facts mean something is to connect them. And the whole point of me making these arguments is to show, well, you can't have it both ways. You can't conserve momentum one day and the next day you decide to conserve kinetic energy. So they are how they ought to be. So he's ignored all the facts. The fact is that Leibniz believed dropping 4 pounds from 1 foot would make the same bang, okay, on the ground as dropping 1 pound 4 feet. It's clearly wrong. It's not the truth. That was his premise for all of his arguments. That was the only fact he cited even. So you talk about isolation. That's it. That's the extent of his evidence, is a wrong statement. And that's how this whole fucking idiotic theory got started, is with that idiotic circumstance where a guy claims a fact that isn't true as a premise for an argument. And here you are talking about how I'm doing a shitty job. You people so fucking suck that you haven't even fixed that. You haven't even acknowledged, oh well, yes, the theory started off pretty poorly. That was a pretty bad argument of Leibniz. Has any of you said those words? No. Because you're just lying scum. I mean, just amazing. God, humans suck. Each step has to make sense, and they don't have to agree with each other. So where again have I said that? I'm the one arguing it all has to add up. Just like Einstein, I'm saying all you need is one defect, one experiment proving otherwise, and you're in trouble. And I've dealt with that trouble, where these cowards don't show you the experiment that comes out. The experiment don't come out their way, they don't show it. You know, proven fact. Ian Gosling, the guy whose video you're commenting on, he hides evidence because being made of obvious steps, they must agree. So, you know, who knows what the fuck he is talking about? This is such gibberish. He must be drunk. Okay, and now we see him on both sides of an issue. So where am I on both sides of the issue at all? Where? What are you talking about? What the fuck could that possibly mean? I'm saying absolutely there'll be no experiment, there'll be no paper written, there'll be no evidence that you will produce ever showing, if I want to know how much energy something collected from a force field, a field of force, all I have to know is how long was it in the field. Time. Time will always tell you the right answer. How is that both sides of an issue? Okay, and not understanding why he's accused of that. Yeah, well, certainly there's no way to understand any of this nonsense. These non-counter arguments, again, it doesn't matter. You make the videos 5 fucking minutes long and they still can't handle it. They still can't handle a fair paraphrase of your argument and then dissecting where you made mistakes. They can't do it. They're so dishonest, they won't do it. Two truths must be comparable. There is no need to check the math. They must be. Well, again, there's no need to check math. Math isn't the physical reality. Check the experiments. Don't check the bullshit that they say is true. See that it's true. I mean, he fails so dismally on that standard. You know, he doesn't need any evidence. Just give me the calculation for Jesus walking on water. I don't need to see him do it. Just show me that it's mathematical. And, you know, make a mathematical equation out of it, and then I'll believe. There's no reason to relate the steps to each other to see if they are consistent. So again, what evidence do you have of this? Could you show an example, you motherfucking lying piece of shit? What is the example of the contradiction? Where? Where have I argued for two contradictory things? Where? You liar. Alright, they will have to be consistent. Math can only follow up and prove what must be the case to begin with. So again, math doesn't prove anything. So again, just a big fat lie. Evidence, experiments prove. Alright, each step is common sense, and common sense always fits together. What the hell is that lie? So this is the same asshole who talks about intuition and how troublesome it is, and how much trouble you can get in going with your intuition. And then he says something like this: each step is common sense, and common sense always fits together. What the fuck could that mean? Alright, this is mainly where I disagree with him philosophically. We disagree philosophically because you're a wooey little princess, okay, who believes in fantasy hope and never fixes anything and just is a blight on, you know, human civilization. You're as bad as, you know, the common villain with your good intentions with no practical plan. Okay, it's clearly been proven that common sense often doesn't fit together. So where is that? Where have you proven this anyway? I'm just curious, where have you proven this? Okay, and that it's unreliable for understanding physics. Well, where did you prove this? So the common sense that says, well, it does seem pretty weird that the smallest thing in the universe, a force bit, can be moved by gravity. Like no force ever acts on another force, and yet we're supposed to believe that photons are bent just by gravity. They're not bent by magnetism, not bent by anything else, just gravity. And guess what? They're not bent, just bent. They're bent twice as much. Yeah, so common sense says that's probably bullshit. And what's the evidence say? Oh, that's right, we don't have any. Oh, amazing. So again, common sense for Leibniz was 4 pounds, 1 foot equals 1 pound, 4 feet. Is it right? No. No, so you just hoist on your own petard, you fuckhead. We use it, but then we check to see if it fits everything else. Yeah, where did you check anything? So there's another big lie. Where did you check that it takes 4 times the fuel to go twice as fast? Where did you check that somewhere? Or 25 times the fuel to go 5 times as fast? Or where did you check that something going 5 times as fast does 25 times the damage? Where did you check that fact? Just so despicably dishonest. Gross. It's just absolutely gross that fucking shit like this can get away with that kind of crap. Let's see. So Gosling says, I've said it before, but I believe his main motivation, I think your main motivation is that you're an idiot. That's it. Okay. There's no other motivation. You're just too stupid. You're too stupid to even have a motivation. It's not physics, but proving something about humanity. Well, you know, you are basically doing that for me. So that is part of the agenda, I have to admit. I mean, the truth is that, you know, I'm demonstrating kind of overtly, kind of directly, that you can't trust religious kooks, but you certainly can't trust scientists either. Okay, they have an agenda also, and the agenda isn't the truth, it isn't the facts, it's they want to tell a story, and they want to be interesting, and they want to hold the keys to the interesting stuff. They want to keep it in Latin, you know, using squirrely little symbols, you know, so you can't understand. Yeah, it's just all more human graft. They're stealing from even the concept of the truth. They're they have to rape and molest that too, you know, because they're just such gluttons and pigs. Okay, he can't prove belief in God condemns us. Whatever that even means. What does that mean? It just proves the point. You're idiots. Belief in God is by definition idiotic. I mean, belief without reason. You might as well throw your brain in the garbage. If good reason isn't going to be why you believe something, then just throw your brain in the garbage, okay? Flush it down the toilet because you've turned it into shit. Oh, God damn these people. Can't disprove God. Well, you really can to somebody reasonable. Just that you can prove that Bugs Bunny, you know, never won the Indianapolis 500. I mean, you can prove it by just proving the absence of any positive evidence. No positive evidence for something is proof against it. Okay, but perhaps through physics he believes he can prove man's idiocratic false belief. Yeah. And you're, like I said, and you're demonstrating it so perfectly because you're doing it so aggressively and so dishonestly that you're just making the point for me. How can you trust people this dishonest? They can't, you know, they can't fight the real man. They have to fight the straw man. I mean, constantly. You know, they never take on my real argument. They pervert it into some kind of mush. You know, they're such cheaters. Okay, because of this, I believe he can never concede he's wrong. So again, what is concede I'm wrong about exactly what? You think 1 pound dropped 4 feet is the same impact weight as 4 pounds dropped 1 foot. Is that your argument? Is that what you're defending? Alright. So then, well, mindless waste of time. Green guy, forget it. So Piro, weight is just force of gravity, literally synonymous. So again, he's saying that what a scale does in weighing things, weights, is somehow magical. And a scale only weighs weight when you have it pointed up in gravity. But it can't weigh weight anywhere else. So if you put a scale anywhere else in the universe or in any other circumstance, it can't weigh weight anymore. The spring fails to do exactly the same thing, which is measure the pressure. So it's just such a silly thing. So this is like the physicist saying I'm holding up a 100-pound barbell and it's not moving, so I'm not doing any work. It's just as dumb as that. And he's doing that right in public. I mean, right in public, he's showing you he's an idiot. Alright. The fact that an object dropped will hit the ground at the same time as an object with horizontal motion, something demonstrated and accepted by draft. So he's pointing out how I've demonstrated it, but why would you use the word accepted? I didn't have to accept it. Alright, I found it perfectly reasonable. Shows the force of gravity is the same for both objects. Yes, because they're in the same gravity the same amount of time. So again, change how much time they're in the gravity and their velocity towards the earth will be different. Fact. Regardless of velocity. Yes, regardless of the velocity in a horizontal direction, if you're going to pretend that the thing going faster gets to go further. You know, so yeah. But you have to change the conditions. You're not doing a fair contest. Make the two things travel the same distance at different velocities and see if they're going to move the same. Because then they're not, quite obviously. It not only has been demonstrated, but he has accepted it. So again, he uses this word accepted when he points out I've demonstrated it. I've shown it in my videos. That admission is... So again, he says it's an admission again. It's not an admission. It wasn't forced out of me. I'm the one who brought it up. Is in contradiction with his claim that objects with velocity weigh more. And how could they possibly not weigh more? So this is, we're back to Newton's direct statement. Twice the force, twice the velocity. 3 times the force, 3 times the velocity. What do you think he meant by force? Force is a weight. I mean, amazingly stupid. No experiment is missing for that. No experiment is missing for that. I don't know what that even... It's not even a sentence. I guess he meant to say the experiment is missing for that. So what experiment do you need to see? I mean, you know, I'm just saying I've done that experiment. So I did drop things on a scale, and I found that 4 times the height, twice the weight. 4 times the height, twice the weight. 4 times the height, twice the weight. It's the way it works. So, yeah. I mean, I'm satisfied. No experiment is the only think missing is Draft's avoiding blatant contradictions in his logic. So what is the contradiction again? 4 times the height, twice the time, twice the velocity, twice the weight. I've written that so many times, right? Hundreds of times. And he's arguing that somehow in that argument there's a contradiction. So when I write over and over again, twice the time, twice the velocity, twice the weight. Yes, 4 times the distance, but which one is real? The twice the velocity is real. The twice the time is real. The twice the weight is real. Okay. So no more Piro. Okay, good. Alright, so enough of that. I just so dishonest. I just can't believe it. Such scum. Oh. What a detestable, creepy pile of scum. Ew. I should have put a bunch of lime ticks on the chair he sat on when he came to my house. Yeah. Should have done something. Ugh. Evil. Evil, evil liar. Alright. So, enough of a video. So we'll see. I mean, again, look, let's just say you're a listener and you're an honest person. And yes, you enjoy the drama and all the little so what? Okay, who cares? But just person to person, honest person to honest person. You know, I mean, isn't there some point where you recognize that they should be able to admit their science hasn't produced any evidence? I mean, the fact that we actually have to contemplate doing, you know, simple experiments, just putting, you know, a coupled oscillator with uneven masses. It's not complicated at all. Taking putting a weight on a rubber band and giving it some energy, and then seeing how fast it oscillates. The fact that we can't just go on the internet and find these experiments. That, you know, again, their physics says it takes 25 times the fuel to go 5 times faster. Do you really think going from 10 miles an hour to 50 miles an hour means you use 25 times the fuel? And if you use some bullshit relativity argument to evade that, you still have the problem that you really think that when you're going 50 miles an hour, you're going to do 25 times the damage. 5 times the damage isn't enough. 25 times the damage? Come on. They have no evidence for any of this crap. And so at least you should be able to say, gee, they ought to at least acknowledge that their physics sucks, in the sense that it's done a terrible job over the last 350 years in showing up with any evidence. Again, Leibniz started it with the wrong 4-pound premise. De Châtelet promoted it with the fake, you know, let's dent clay with round objects because it's a linear test of energy. When clearly the round object isn't linear. Yeah. It's just so bad. So just recognize how dishonest these people are, that they won't even admit that all these experiments already should have been done by their physics. That us, we, showing up here in 2023, shouldn't have to drop weights on clumps of clay. We really shouldn't have to be doing that. Fuck. It's just, I can't believe you're just, what a planet of scum. Yeah.